All right, guys, thank you very much for coming in for the last session of the day. The focus for this session is really to look at how we help, or how can you overcome the challenges of delivering premium content, live streaming to Android devices in the fragmented world of Android, the different video streaming capabilities, delivery protocols, codecs, everything that's different across, think of the older legacy Androids, which now the Android sort of 2.2 platform, all the way up to now what we're seeing with Android 4 and above. My name's Andrew Spalding. I'm a Director of Sales Engineering at Uyala. And for those of you who don't know who or what Uyala is, we're an online video company based down in Mountain View, in Silicon Valley. So we're a Silicon Valley tech company. It came from the YouTube and the video ad space and the ad display space. 3 founders there, 2 of them are brothers, Bal and Bismarck. And then Sean Knapp, who his last project from Google just actually got closed down. It was iGoogle was one of his last projects. But the 3 of them got together to really try and solve premium content monetization and how we can help deliver studio-led, studio-grade experiences. Sort of consider it Netflix in a box style models for premium content publishers to the web for a multi-screen delivery experience. We're well funded. And we actually have a very big focus on one, multi-screen, which we'll get onto today, but also analytics and personalization. So big data has always been key to the Uyala platform, which we'll talk about in a moment. Here's a quick snapshot of the types of clients that we're working with. This has changed a lot over the last 6 years as well. It's gone from working with the local mum and dad plumbing store who wanted to put a quick advertisement up online through to the likes of a Vice magazine and now BYU TV through to ESPN, and others that you can see up here as well. And Uyala's been doing this with our offering, which really, as I said, it stems from the data. The big data analytics platform is what we really base all our products around. This feeds back into how do you optimize your publishing workflows? How do you optimize your monetization strategies? How do you choose what device is the right screen to target next as part of your application and device reach strategy? And we'll do that through these particular clients. So Uyala not only transcodes, manages the content, and then it helps you choose the sort of the programming schedule and the playout rules for which platform gets to play out this content. And we'll do that across Flash for the desktop and HTML5 for environments that don't run Flash in the mobile web. We also have our iOS and Android SDKs. But then from the Android perspective, even though we do have an Android SDK, as I mentioned before, the fragmentation of what we're looking at around Android really stems from not only the different versions of the operating system, but also the different screen sizes, the different GPU capabilities, the different graphics cards that they have in each of these devices. And then across sort of that fragmented world, when we look at the operating system fragmentation, this really sort of blends. You see, luckily right now we have over half the pie running on Android 4.x and above. And this is where we started to see the introduction of Apple's streaming protocol, Apple HTTP live streaming, or HLS as it's often shortened to. So if you have a look, Jelly Bean, which is what the 4.x branch was named, as I said, it's got about 54% of the market share, but it's that other 50% of Android environments that are still running different delivery protocols. You have to do sort of progressive download of an MP4 file, so you're not going to get that adaptive bitrate playback experience. You're not going to have the ability to integrate your advertising strategies and run mid-rolls or pre-rolls or post-rolls across some of this MP4 stream without having to stitch it in or burn it into that video streaming file. Then you start to lose the ability to do live streaming because it's running in a progressive download world of having to download that entire video file to play it back. That alone discounts you from being able to stream live to these other handsets. You're going to lose half of your Android market very quickly. One thing that I thought was quite interesting, I grabbed these stats from the Google Play Store for the Hook installations. So as of November 1st, Uyala has seen nearly 2,500 distinct different Android handsets that have been running Hook. And as I said, this might just be down to the different serial numbers. It could be the same Samsung Galaxy S3 that's got the, it's the LTE version versus the 3G version, but it could be the Asian version versus the Australian version or the US version. And again, there could be small tweaks in the hardware and the different screen sizes and other nuances that can get in the way of having a seamless video playback experience. And again, you'll see, not only do we have 50% running on Android 4.x, but now we've got 50% of the market is actually running other variations of Android devices that people are extending the Android operating system adding their own tweaks and changes to it, which again gets in the way. And these are versions of Android, tablets and phones that could be built by NEC or Fujitsu, or it could be the Archos out of France, or it could be something very different other than the mainstream Samsung, HTC, Motorola, Google and other handsets that you normally see in the market. And Uyala is really trying to solve this through an application or a product that we call Hook. So the Hook player is an application that really tries to solve the complexity of delivering a premium content experience to Android. So delivering to the desktop's always been easy. Because we've had the proliferation of Adobe's Flash Player at sort of 98, 99% penetration, they get an adoption up to sort of 80% installation of their new versions in about 6 months, sometimes less. Especially now that they have an auto update option for their Flash Player, you're always almost guaranteed the latest Flash Player running on the desktop. HTML5 is starting to become more prominent, depending on which browser you're in as well. HTML5 will support, in certain browsers, H.264 for a video codec. In Firefox, they've only just added H.264. So you need a different video format or a codec for the older versions of Firefox. Some will do HTTP live streaming, some won't, which means you start to get that sort of fragmentation there. That's why Flash is a good desktop delivery mechanism for your video content. But HTML5 on a tablet experience is great on your iOS platforms. And again, you don't sort of see that fragmentation that you do in Android with the versioning. For those of you who are running an iPhone or an iPad in the audience, I would say that either you have generally updated when there's a new version that's come out for iOS, or you're pretty close to updating. And you normally see that over 90% of an iOS audience base generally updates very quickly. So you're not worrying about that fragmentation. You get a very small audience segment that doesn't have the latest version. And it's consistent. It's a consistent experience for the delivery and video support across those platforms as well for delivery. Then there's challenges that you start to get into around closed captioning as well, which is a completely different story, which we'll address. But with Hook specifically, we tried to bring these capabilities to Android. And not just the latest versions of Android that had HTTP live streaming support, but all the way back to Android 2.2 and above. So it can be very expensive for you to have a look at what does your audience segment look like, and should you explore delivering an application for Android. And for a lot of you, Android might be a small user base. But this could be a very expensive undertaking. You're building applications for devices can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars to build these apps. So Hook is a web framework that really allows you to deliver inexpensively premium content to Android. So it's the same Uyala video player sort of JavaScript code that's embedded on your web browser. It can also be launched as an intent through a native Android application as well. So if I've got the same JavaScript embed on my page, I don't have to write any more code as a content publisher. I can log into the content management system, I can configure my players, configure my metadata rules around the assets, and enable my video playback experience to use Hook on Android. So the next time the consumer loads up their web browser experience and browses their player, it'll look like the HTML5 player, but on Android, they'll have the option. Once they click on that play button, it will prompt them to install Hook. Hook will take them to the Google Play Store, they'll download that app. The next time they visit that web browsing experience and play it back, the video playback will actually launch Hook dynamically. So it'll take you out of the browser experience and launch a full screen video playback environment, which is the Hook app. Passes through the HTTP live streams. You now have adaptive bitrate playback on Android, all the way through back to Android 2.2, which only did, without Hook, only supported progressive download MP4 content. So we have adaptive streaming with ABR, with HLS, which means we can now do live streaming across those older versions of Android that couldn't do live streaming. So it's great as we're looking at people doing one-time events, music or sports, or we've got broadcasters like the guys at BYU TV who are doing 24/7 linear channels. And they want to reach a wider audience. So Hook very quickly enables that type of market. Hook then brings with it advertising integrations. It's another screen that we can start to monetize content on. And more importantly, we had some sessions in this particular room earlier today around closed captioning and subtitling support. And especially for those in the broadcast space, there are specific requirements moving forward that you need to have closed captions across your content, especially as you're delivering it online over IP. Hook will also enable the closed captions to be able to play back as well. So we'll take the CEA 608 and 708 metadata, have that embedded through the live streaming encoder straight into the stream, and Hook will pick up that stream Hook will also have closed captioning support for VOD content as well. So you have a very consistent experience for live and VOD. And here's an example of some of the customers that are actually deployed using Hook. The likes of the tennis channel, for example. On one of their biggest weeks of the year around the French Open, they didn't have to spend $100,000 to build an Android application. They could turn on their Hook experience through their content management platform, being Uyala's backlot, and deliver a great live streaming viewing experience for more than 10,000. They had about 30,000 downloads in 2 days for them, which is an untapped audience. They didn't actually market to their Android audience that they were now delivering content, but they had close to 30,000 users come to their site through an Android device over a period of 2 days. And they actually saw that the Android users who downloaded and installed Hook were engaged through Uyala's analytics and reporting 2 times longer than those that were streaming on an iOS device. So those guys are actually hunting and searching out the content, had the intent to go and want to watch that content, and stayed around for a much longer period. A few of the other clients that we're seeing that are Comedy Central. You've got Live Nation for some of their music clips as well on their website. Pac-12 for Pac-12 Networks are doing this for their VOD content as well as they run 7 linear channels through their applications. And then Autodesk for something completely different are doing this through their help portals. These are their how-to documents and their tech support videos. So for those users that are browsing on their devices through Android, for Autodesk, for help articles, and actually also be able to watch that content. Let me take you through what the experience really looks like. I talked about the same JavaScript video player embed that just runs on the same page. So from the development perspective, they're extremely low cost. I don't have to do anything. That's from the development. I don't have to do anything from the video content management either, because I've already encoded my assets to run with HTTP live streaming to deliver via the mobile web browser on Safari for my iPad and my iPhone. So I can take that same stream and instantly play it back through Hook. But for the first time that a customer visits an Uyala publisher that's enabled Hook, they'll get prompted to download and install the application. As they download the application, it takes them to the Play Store and then returns them to the web browser. That's a one-time install for any time they visit an Uyala-enabled website that's running Hook. The next time they bounce from BYU to Tennis Channel, then to Pac-12 to Autodesk, they get the experience where all they have to do is touch the play icon and they jump to a full screen video playback experience. So for them, it's a very seamless way of getting the best quality consumer experience, the best quality video playback experience on the handsets that they normally wouldn't have to reach or would have to spend an exorbitant amount of money to build an application to support this. Now, the way we're doing this is that because it's expensive, we've actually taken on the licensing costs of a library from a company called Visual On. Visual On have a HTTP live streaming library that you can license to use inside of your own applications. But that could be costly. That could cost you anywhere between $80,000 to $100,000 plus to license that library. And if you have to do that for every application that you were going to build, then it gets very expensive. So we've taken on that cost as part of enabling this capability for our customers. And Hook, sort of longer term, and this is great while we got the fragmentation of 50%, 54%, as I said before, is running Jelly Bean on the Android operating systems. Hook sort of solves for that other half of the pie right now, where we don't have the ability to do live streaming, adaptive bitrate, and advertising across those other Android platforms. But as the market penetration of Android 4.x takes over and that pie starts to sort of come around full circle and be in a video-capable world for the Android operating systems, I'm sure there'll be fragmentation somewhere else. And we're already starting to see, as if you are challenged delivering content to connected television, for example. Now that's a world where there is that fragmentation from the 2011 model to the 2010 to the 2013 or the 2012 model. I mean, every model of the televisions, whether it be Samsung, LG, Panasonic, they're all very different. So Hook might actually move to a different platform. We might choose to build a Hook player to solve for fragmentation across other screens. Especially as we look at maybe 12 months down the path, consistent delivery formats and protocols such as MPEG-Dash coming out. So if we had a look at MPEG-Dash as the one streaming format that would solve all problems, then hopefully we can get to a world where we get away from the fragmented world of the devices, but as I said, fragmentation, especially in the video space, seems to move very quickly from whether it be streaming to playback to DRM to now televisions. Set-top boxes is a completely different world again. Game consoles is something else. But what I would like to give you an example of how one of our customers has solved this problem. He's actually introduced you to Ryan Holmes from BYU TV, Brigham Young University. Ryan is the director of the Digital Media Group. And Ryan, if you'd like to join me, I'd love for you to tell the audience about what you do at BYU and how you've been able to solve for Android.
Thanks, Andrew. So I don't know how many here have heard of BYU TV. 3 or 4 years ago, I hadn't heard of it either. And I'm an alumni of BYU. But kind of an interesting story that I won't tell now about how we grew from being this little local PBS station. We still operate that PBS station, but now we have BYU TV, which is a cable channel that goes out over Dish and Direct and about 800 other cable providers to over 60 million US households. We broadcast in English, Spanish, Portuguese. The Spanish and Portuguese feeds go to Latin America on our another channel, BYU TV International. We operate 2 radio stations. BYU Radio, the most notable, is on Sirius XM and over the air in Utah. And we're really concerned about global distribution, and we have kind of some interesting challenges. Like I said, BYU TV is sort of our main property. It receives the most attention. And we produce about 1,500 hours a year of original content for BYU TV. A lot of it is sports, and we're also producing scripted dramas and even comedy, and of course a lot of university-related content. A lot of live events. So this creates a challenge for us because online, BYU TV has actually been streaming online for probably longer than anyone else. How many here have heard of Move networks? That tells me you're a veteran in this space, and Move was one of the first to do live linear streaming, and they had some pretty cool technology, and they were there in Utah, and they came to us at BYU Broadcasting and asked if they could use our streams, and we were a Move Networks customer. And so we've been streaming live television online for almost 10 years. But they got out of that business, and we ended up in a situation where we needed to find a new online video platform. And that's where our relationship with Uyala started about 3.5 years ago. I'll just give you a little idea of the kind of content.
You have to plug it in on the other
side. Oh yeah, that's right. There we go.
You've walked with us, maybe hung with us, or even rode along. You've laughed with us, maybe danced with us, or connected with a song. You've changed with us, maybe sang with us, or even cheered us on. And it just keeps getting better.
So BYU TV is still undergoing a transformation. When I first got there 3.5 years ago, it was mostly broadcasting forums and speeches on campus, a lot of talking head kind of stuff. And now we're to the point where we're actually, one of our shows is a show called Granite Flats. We spend over $1 million an episode. It's a scripted drama, which is, maybe not a lot by Hollywood standards, but it's quite a bit for a university channel. And we're garnering quite an audience. So that's kind of what we're doing. And let me talk to you now about what I do here in the digital media group at BYU Broadcasting. Like pretty much everyone at this conference, I'm involved in this broadband media distribution platform, and we're trying to solve this multivariable equation of devices and browsers and network connection types and content origins, and it can get pretty challenging. But I think we've taken an approach that works for us, and you'll get some idea about that here in a minute. So Of course, we're developing websites like everyone is, but in the last 3 years, we've really put a lot of time and energy focusing on apps. If you look at our platform, we stream a live linear 24/7 channel in, like I said, in 3 languages. We also have DVR capabilities, so what that means to us is we're using an Akamai HD DVR product. When we have a live event, like a football game or a basketball game, we'll have the live linear stream going, and we'll also have a DVR stream going so that users that come 10 minutes late or an hour late or a day late can go to the DVR section of our website or app and play it. And it sort of bridges the gap between live, linear, and on-demand. All of those shows will show up in our on-demand catalog a few days later. Closed captioning. How many here are broadcasters? You know that the FCC requirements and regulations dictate closed captioning for both live and on-demand content, and that's a big requirement we take seriously, and so it's one of the requirements and features that drove us toward our solution with Android, with Uyala and Hook. The other thing our platform does is we support ad network integration. So we're delivering pre, mid, and post rolls if we want. We have, you want to unplug that for a minute? Okay. We also, as part of our sort of web service layer, are delivering the TV schedule. So that hooks right into our broadcast automation system. This notion of TV everywhere we've been working on for years now. We track your playhead, we'll track your favorite episodes, your favorite shows, we'll send you notifications when there's a new episode of your favorite show. Integrated analytics is something that we're working on too. 3 years ago, someone in our organization would come to me and say, hey, can you tell me how many people watched that football game? And they think they're asking a really simple question, but it's not that simple of an answer. When you've got a live linear stream, you have a DVR stream, you have VOD, you have Roku, you have iOS, you have Android, you have Xbox 360, you have web. So how do you get all of those analytics together is a challenge that we've been working on, and we've solved it a certain way. Here's kind of what our technology stack looks like. I don't need to spend too much time here. I know you all are familiar with these kinds of technologies and cloud services. Uyala and Akamai, Amazon are important partners of ours, especially Uyala. If we've done anything right in how we've architected our solution, it's this web service layer that we've created. Our platform is integrated, and by that I mean when we feature content on our website or on our, do you want to unplug that for a minute? Yeah. When we feature content on our website, the content management system that we use pushes content to all of our platforms. We manage it in one place. It's not like we can push content to Android differently than we push it to Roku or iOS. It may be a limitation, but it's also somewhat empowering because it forces us to look at the platform as a single delivery mechanism. And our users like it because they get a very consistent experience across devices. So, like I said, Uyala is an important partner of ours, and they provide some key services. We have a very small digital media group, and there's no way we could do the breadth and depth of what we're doing without a partner like Uyala. They provide the live and DVR streaming together with Akamai. We send that out in HLS and HDS for Flash. They do our VOD transcoding and delivery. We use their players on various platforms. They provide ad service integration for us and analytics, and also this hook that Andrew has been talking about. In 2013, we expanded our platform to include, we're about to release an Xbox 360 app. We have Android phones and tablets and Google TV that we're working on. And I know this is mostly about Android, but I would just, Xbox is not an easy platform to develop for. I don't know how many here have ever developed Xbox. Before I came to BYU TV, I was in the video game development world, so I had some experience working with Microsoft and their whole development platform, and it's not iOS and it's not Android. It's a much more difficult platform to work with. But because of our web service layer and the way our metadata can be served up to a client, and the fact that we found a vendor that Uyala actually referred us to that is a partner of Uyala's, we're actually able to deliver HLS with all of the features that we want to Xbox. So just gives you a little bit of an idea of kind of how we're able to expand our platform quite easily because of our technology partners. So let's talk about Android. We're going to get to the point, and so here's our Android app. It plays live TV, it has DVR streams, it has, of course, access to our entire on-demand library, which is well over 3,000 hours of video. And I think, like I mentioned before, the amazing thing for us is that we do this with that size of team. And I think that's the strongest argument for choosing the right partners and choosing the right approach. Big thing, small team. We don't have a ton of resources, but we have what we need to do the things that we're doing. And it's been a lot of fun. My whole background has been in little startup companies, and this little group inside of BYU Broadcasting is like a startup company. We get to work on all kinds of platforms and solve all kinds of problems. And choosing our partners has been very important to us. So I'm going to show you a demo of this Android app that uses Hook to deliver live streams. It delivers live captions, on-demand captions. And it does that both for our native app and for our web experience. So both online websites and the native app use Hook. And for us, there was really no other way. We can't just ignore the mandate for captioning, and we couldn't find any other solution for live captions because, frankly, the Android platform simply does not natively support the CEA 608 broadcast standard for captions. So let's switch the inputs here. Turn this thing on. And hopefully I still have a connection. Is that buzzing on you back there? So here's a website. This is one of our websites, BYU TV Sports. And here's what, I could uninstall Hook and show you just how easy it is. It's a one-time install. It takes literally about 5 seconds to download. I mean, it's very light. And after that, the user never has to worry about it.
I think the best part about that is, this is the same website that runs on the desktop for BYU TV. So nothing's changed in terms of the development that had to happen. It's the same JavaScript that's loading up the video player. On the desktop, it loads the Flash player as the preference set by the way the player is being embedded on the website. When you get to an iOS
opening
device,
night at Lavelle Edwards Stadium, and Mother Nature crashes the party. The dousing delays the kickoff, but not the magnitude of the moment. It's BYU Texas, right now on BYU TV.
The HTML5 experience, but then it's also going to run that video playback through Hook. So when Ryan hit the play button, that actually launched the Uyala Hook application as an intent. And the way Android's been built, as soon as you hit the back button, it takes you back to where you previously were, which takes you straight back to the web browser. So that way the consumer is not left inside of the Hook experience and taken away from your brand and your content. But actually, if you hit stop, we just back button, you can take it back.
This gives you an idea. How about that? A live demo that actually
works. It's the home opener in Provo
on the Wi-Fi,
with a big challenge tonight.
Yeah, would you guys all stop using your Wi-Fi right now so you don't mess up my live demo?
On the BYU Cougars.
You want to see some captioning? So the way that works, the hook player just detects that the captions are there. This is a piece of VOD, so we use a DFXP file. That just goes into the Uyala platform, and Uyala takes that DFXP and can translate it into whatever format their players need to display the captions. So when I tap on, there's a...
started 12 of 13 games last year for the Longhorns, completed 67% of his passes for just under 2,700 yards. Experienced, big-time quarterback.
So
Taysom Hill,
you can see the captions coming in there at the bottom.
Full-time starter. We're waiting to see how he engineers this fast break or play fast, play hard offense for Robert
a DFXP file
he certainly has the
into our content management platform, which we generally use in our flash playback experience. For embedding that into a HLS stream, our transcoding engine will dynamically change and convert that or transform that DFXP file into a web VTT format, which is generally used in app playback environments on iOS from iOS 5 up. For our hook application, because we already got the DFXP file, we're actually just taking that DFXP file, it's already got the time code metadata there that can actually map that.
Texas wins the coin toss, and they defer to the second
The great thing for us is that there's no extra work on our part to prepare that video or the captions for Android. It's what we were already doing for iOS. So
there's some keys
Uyala's handling any special, technology that might be required to make this work on Android. That's the benefit of Hook. And so when I click the back button, I go right back to the website, and I don't even realize that there was another application involved. Really, it's quite seamless. So that's the web environment. Let me go now to our native app and show you what that looks like. So here's that application environment. Like I said, you can browse all of our content. You've got watching live television. You've got the TV schedule and your favorite shows, episodes, your viewing history, and the different categories of shows that you can look at. So if we were to, come over here and look at featured shows and pull up again a piece of VOD, it immediately launches Hook pretty seamlessly.
3, 2, 1. Happy 18th birthday, son! Now, right?
Whoops, didn't mean to turn the
but it's
volume
midnight.
down.
It's time for you to leave home and
hey,
go
turn
make
it up.
something
This is
of
comedy.
yourself. You're not a kid anymore.
Yeah, like as of 10 seconds ago. And don't come back to visit until you have a full-time job, are married, and have 2 grandbabies.
So for building your own applications with Android, we have a couple of different SDKs that you can use, but you either build an application using an SDK that takes you back to Android 2, but then you have fragmented video playback again.
On my birthday.
You could go ahead and also license the Visual On library yourself if you wish. But that's $100,000 for the library, and you can build adaptive streaming all the way back to Android 2. Or you can take the approach that BYU has done and actually just leverage Android's intent to launch other experiences. So they already had their Android experience. Actually use an intent just like the web-based playback did to launch Hook to playback the content as well. What's nice about it is, and Ryan's actually turned it off, but the ad management that our CMS also provides gets pulled back into Hook as well. So pre-rolls, mid-rolls. We didn't want to have every playback in the demo run with a 30-second pre-roll for you, so we actually turned off the ad experiences for this at the moment. But we get the ads from the application. You're getting the monetizing both, not just the VOD content in the browser, Ryan, but also your live streaming with live captions that are also coming through.
Yep. In fact, we can show that easily. So that's another piece of VOD if we want to go watch live television. No guarantees about what's on right now. I guess I should turn the volume on.
that if I had been living in Nazi Germany, I would have been put in that camp along with her. And if my mom...
So there you see the live captions coming in there at the bottom. And, you know, right now we're interested in compliance. As many of you are aware, the closed captioning regulations sort of scale over time. And this coming year, you've got to be able to control the layout and the styling of those captions. The user has to be able to, in the player, say, or on the device somehow say, I want that font to be bigger, I want to change the location, I want to change the color. Right now, iOS 7 has that capability built into it, so Apple's a little bit ahead of the curve that way, but you know, is Android going to do that? I don't know. Past history says probably not. So we're going to rely on people like Andrew to help us solve that problem. Because I can't imagine having to solve that problem myself. That's not my core competency. Our core competency is creating content that we think our target audiences are going to enjoy. That's our value proposition. We're not a technology company per se. Does that make sense? So focus on our core competencies means bringing in partners that give us capability that we wouldn't otherwise have. Any questions about anything you've seen so far? See, and I'm back to the app quite seamlessly.
See a microphone down the front there, if you can speak into the microphone, that'd be great.
Hello. Just a quick question. Is it true that Android natively doesn't support HLS multi-bit stream?
HLS was actually brought in from Android 4. Android 4 up, but still I think there's probably some other comments from guys who actually, you know, distribute handsets into the market, the guys in the Verizon. You know, Android 4 up introduced HLS support, but it's still not as consistent as it should be across all of the, you know, the variations of the operating system.
Because what I heard earlier is the hook is the one is going to bring in this multi-bit support on Android devices.
That's
so
right.
I thought maybe the Android natively doesn't do it, so your hook
Android natively does from Android 4 and above, inconsistently at the moment. But what we wanted to make sure was help you and our customer base address the market below Android 4 as well. So there's still 50% of the market that's still running Android 2 and 3. So there's that untapped audience that you couldn't deliver adaptive bitrate experiences to, or live streaming with caption.
Well, and that also, even though they could play a live HLS stream, they couldn't play a live HLS stream with captions. There's no support for that in any kind of native Android anything. So if you're a broadcaster and you're going to, you know, comply with the regulations, then you've got to find a different solution.
I think the other benefit that we mentioned around that as well was, I mean, you could do this yourself, but it can be a costly exercise to build applications and frameworks to make this happen. So this is an extension of Uyala's, you know, core capabilities that really solves for that distribution right now.
When we were developing our app, we actually built a version that used all the native players, and it was actually a couple of things. We could never find a solution for the captioning, so that was the deal breaker. But also the playback experience, the quality of the playback was a lot more consistent in Hook across all of these different devices that we were testing. So that was also a big benefit to us.
I think there were some questions down in the middle there.
So is Hook just a dumb player? Does it actually, can you run it by itself without, and do some discovery?
You can run it by itself, and it will list out history, what your browsing history has been, and then through, Uyala also has a content recommendations platform. So through the next versions of Hook will be to introduce content discovery into that browsing experience. You can actually launch, we've just turned this one off, but we can actually launch Hook just like you launch any of the apps on your Android tablet, and then see your history and go, you know, straight to a piece of content in the history. So you don't have to do it through browser content in the web.
So essentially through the discovery, you can see other competitive videos.
Yeah.
That's a potential. So that's why we haven't turned that particular component on, because we could recommend over
It's
the
not
top
white
of,
labeled just for
yeah. So, and I
one-
think that's the other part of Uyala's content recommendations platform. We do silo that to our publishers' data. So Ryan would only recommend BYU's data and video content. He's not recommending Bloomberg's content over the top of his content, for example. So I think there's a question right behind you.
I think you've probably already answered it. Lynn Gillis from IBM. I was just wondering if the hook player can be disengaged from Uyala, and if people can purchase the hook infrastructure to use inside their own enterprise, or...
So right now, it's the hook application as it stands is an Uyala product, an extension of the Uyala playback stack. The components that live inside of it, for example, I think I mentioned before, we actually license for the HLS component of what makes up the larger, broader stack of hook. The HLS library is from a company called Visual On. So they've solved and built a HTTP live streaming component that can work all the way back to Android 2.2 and above. So you could license that, but that's I think I said about $100,000 to license just that one for one application. So
but that doesn't solve any of your...
That doesn't solve the rest of the
problem
discovery,
of,
playback, analytics, monetization. The other thing I think I forgot to mention, it was a bit of a lapse on my part, Hook also provides Widevine integration as well. So you're going to have the DRM level protection native on those devices as well. So there's a whole bunch of other components that it adds, but no, it's not a separate or standalone component.
From Redbox Instant, what about DRM support with PlayReady and Smooth Streaming? Hook, have you guys worked with that as well?
We've particularly gone down HLS for Android today. Smooth streaming, there's not a great way to deliver smooth streaming without, again, licensing other more expensive components and players from other third parties to deliver to the tablets. So we'll focus on smooth streaming for Xbox as a platform. We'll do smooth with PlayReady for Xbox. We'll generally do Adobe Access for desktop, and then we'll do Widevine at the moment from the Android and iOS platforms. So that's the strategy we've taken for our DRM strategy. That'll change over time as we start to look at, again, I mentioned before, consistency of delivery formats with MPEG Dash. Hopefully we'll get to a way where we get consistency of DRM formats. We really don't know where we're going to end up. But right now, most of those DRM strategies that we put in place have been based on the content providers that have been working with our customers. So we've been certified for Widevine on iOS, for example, and been certified for Adobe Access on the desktop, and that's what's been certified by the studios.
So you're using Widevine for live? You're using Widevine for live?
We do PlayReady for live, and we actually do Widevine for live down with Telstra in Australia. Any other questions? Nope. Oh, one more question.
Yeah, what kind of guarantee can you provide? You mentioned earlier on the sheer volume of Android devices, or everything required to deliver into that. I mean, what's your QA and test procedure to ensure that this is,
We go through the QA sort of testing process is exactly the same as we have to do if we're testing Flash all the way through from IE6 through to IE 11 and Google Chrome, and there are dozens of different versions and same sort of thing we do we have a QA team, an extensive QA team that has to test across the different platforms. And for example, if I take the Android market in Japan, they have about 44. Yahoo Japan and NTT are very important customers of ours. They're supporting 40 plus Android devices of the likes we haven't seen in the US, for example. So they've got those sorts of other frameworks and platforms we have to test against as well. So we'll guarantee that it will work on those platforms, and it's been certified for those platforms. And then the guts of the application, again, is also certified from the HLS perspective by Visual On. If the user chooses not to install Hook, then it will fall back to whatever the native experience will provide. And if they're trying to stream live to Android 2 without Hook, then they're not going to get that experience at all. So more often than not, you'll find that the user will go back then choose to install it because they can't get access to the content they're trying to consume?
What we've decided to only support when we published our app back to iOS 4.0 and above. And we just decided to avoid the headache of those older devices. So we know that our users are having a good experience. And if you look at the ratings on our app, it bears that out. We're not getting any negative ratings. We know that it's working by and large for everyone.
Just clarifying that, you're saying that you're only supporting back to 4.
So clarify from the Uyala hook application perspective, goes all the way back to Android 2.2 and above. But the BYU application that is launching Hook from within inside their own native application, they've built their own native app to be 4 and above, but that still launches Hook.
Yeah, honestly, you shouldn't be trying to stream video on an Android 2.2 anything. You just shouldn't. It's not a good experience. There's not enough horsepower on the device itself to really do a good job of that. I mean, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And we decided, the market is growing fast enough. We're okay telling our users, hey, look, you've got a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old phone. It's time to get a new phone. And we haven't had any backlash from users with older phones not being able to get our content.
But if they choose to visit the browser, then they can get the playback experience.
That's true.
Without having to get the native app. They just use the Hook app instead. No other questions? One more?
I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about just the innards of Hook. I mean, is it essentially a substitute for like a Flash Player plugin? You've developed your own type of binary format that gets downloaded? I mean, you mentioned Move earlier. I'm just curious, was there a relationship with Move, and did you inherit any technology to make your own player? Like, I guess I'm trying to just figure out, like, do you do everything all the way down to the decoding level, or did you build an HLS parser so that you could pass it on to the native media renderer that any native app can do?
So the HLS component of it is actually from a company called Visual On. So it's Visual On's HLS library that's living inside of Hook. So that's at the core, is what's being able to decode and pass the HLS for playback. Then Uyala's components built on top of that to do the closed captioning. And then the Widevine DRM components, the advertising, and then the analytics components of it as well that really make up the core of Uyala's stack, from consumption to understanding that consumer's behavior and how long are they engaging with that content, and then feeds back all the way to the analytics. That then drives monetization decisions to know, are my ads and my pre-rolls and my mid-rolls actually affecting playback of my content? So we have a full sort of circle from the monetization and playback and engagement experience within Hook. But at the core, it really is a bare bones video player. If you talk about being a Flash Player style plugin to make sure that you have a consistent video playback experience, then yeah, it could be akin to that style of model. I was talking to some of these gentlemen down the front earlier that about 12 months ago, the BBC were actually doing this over in the UK by themselves. They had fragmentation across their Android market. They couldn't deliver through their iPlayer website, so they built an iPlayer application which was just a dummy video box that when a consumer visited the iPlayer experience to the browser on their Android tablet and they hit play, it would ask them or prompt them to download the BBC video player, and then from there on, any subsequent play on the iPlayer experience to the browser would launch the BBC's video player, because then they had control over consistency of playback. So it really is a dummy black box that solves everything that you're trying to do when delivering content for adaptive streaming, live, closed caption support, analytics, and advertising.
Thanks.
Saves you having to do it yourself. Well, if there's no more questions, I believe that's the end of the day. And don't forget, you've got the reception between 5 and 6. I hope to see you there.